Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Lauren and Alexis, for allowing me this opportunity to speak with the group. There really are just three things that I want to say to you. Then the first one actually is a statement. I'm directing this primarily to the first year students in the audience. You belong at Bryn Mawr. Don't let anyone suggest or insinuate otherwise. By virtue of the fact that you went through the same evaluation process that every other member of your class went through, you have earned your seat at Bryn Mawr. That's first. Secondly, the college has a job, if you will, of challenging you both intellectually and socially. They have a responsibility for providing you with an opportunity for a rigorous and progressive education. That's Bryn Mawr's promise to you. That's their agreement with you, their bargain. But I feel as though students have a reciprocal kind of bargain, and in my mind it goes something like this. First and foremost, there is the requirement to focus upon academics. End of sentence, period, full stop. But then you have to have fun, and you need to find the joy in life and keep it there. You should be making friendships that will last you for the rest of your life. You should be having adventures. Please have more than one adventure while you're here. You should be challenging, all kinds of points of authority, questioning them. And I hope that each and every one of you will do that. But there's something else that I want to add to that list, and for me it's second only to academic focus, and that is political awareness or political awakening if you consider yourself a non or an apolitical person. If you're that person who shies away from the difficult conversations around race and class and culture and privilege, I urge you to find a way to become that person. Take someone else's hand and go sit in that conversation. And you don't have to speak the first time if you don't want to. Listen to someone who actually may have a different or stronger life experience in a particular area than you do. Push yourself to be in those spaces, if not to actually create those spaces in your classroom, in your dorm, in the Pensby Center, at the Enid Cook Center. Have those difficult conversations and go for every nuance of what those issues can bring up. I promise you that when you step across the threshold of Bryn Mawr and become a graduate and an alum, the world would expect that you have considered these issues and all of their nuances. I can remember thinking several times while I was at Bryn Mawr that every year or every couple of years when there was a full moon, there would be a crisis. And everyone would sort of fly into action trying to figure out the best strategy, the best, way of working, dealing with that issue. But the truth is that you don't have to wait until there's a crisis or trauma in order to practice social justice. And that's really what I'm talking about, issues of social justice. And in fact, my personal recommendation, start honing your skills in that area before there's a crisis. So I pass that along for your consideration. The last thing that I want to say has to do with the brief history of the college with respect to African American women in particular and Latino women as well, if I understand correctly, that you're going to have or that perhaps you've already had this afternoon. Every time I think of the history of the college with respect to African American and Latino women, I think of Dr. Evelyn Rich. Dr. Rich is Bryn Mawr class of 54, I believe. And some years ago, I heard this story from her that when she was an undergraduate, and you can imagine that in 1954, in the 50 and 54, there were maybe half a dozen African American women living on campus. Maybe one per class or two in some class. They didn't see each other every day. They didn't live in the same dormitory. They didn't take the same classes. But they would see each other passing in the hallways and across the greens. And so they very early on developed a system, really, of signaling, I guess you would call it, that basically was intended to say, aha, I see you. I'm class of 54. Ah, I see you. You're class of 56. We know that each other is there. We are united in our scarcity, even. There was no sisterhood or Maharas or Bakasa. There was no Perry House or Enid Cook Center or Pensby Center. These were 6 women who had to find their way through Bryn Mawr, but nevertheless wanted to let the other know that they were there, they recognized them, they supported them. Now, thank goodness today things are very, very different. There really is a critical mass of African American and Latino students on campus. I hope those numbers continue to increase. But with those increased numbers comes a kind of risk. And that risk is that the numbers have increased, and so there can be a tendency to fracture. You know, for sisterhood to do its thing, and Picasso to do its thing, and Mahadas to do its thing, and emerging action coalitions or political coalitions or, you know, action groups to emerge and do their own thing. Entering students will sense this. They will sense the fracture, if there is one. They will sense that they are being drawn to one group in the exclusion of the other. I think that's not what you really want to have happen. Let me urge you to find common ground. Even if, you know, it looks as though that's nearly impossible, trust me, it's there. Maybe the place to start is to think about the changes that you would like to see happen at your institution, at this institution. Then think about the legacy that you would like to leave for students who will come next year, and in 5 years, and in 10 years from now, and how that legacy might be tracked. What that legacy might look like. Maybe it looks like not just a lip service to greater diversity, because I think we throw that word around a lot. I'm certainly guilty of it. But maybe it really does look like a more inclusive and more welcoming community. And think about how you might find common ground in working towards that. I think that would be a worthwhile endeavor. And I think that as new classes come in and they recognize the differences in the various affinity groups and perhaps develop their own action, political vanguards, as it were, they will take the lesson from you that in all of that difference, carving out that difference, the one thing that happens between students of color on this campus is that they find a common ground. Okay, that's enough from me. I know, for example, that Lauren and Alexis and the alumni office have some wonderful things planned for you this afternoon. I don't want to keep you from it any longer. Who knows, maybe the next time I can join you. I just want to leave you with this assertion that's personally from me. I did have those nearly 39 years on campus, during which I was privileged to meet a number of students, both undergraduate and graduate, to get to know a number of faculty, staff, administrators. You have an incredible wealth of resources virtually at your fingertips. So figure out who those people are. Don't wait for them to come to you. They're thinking about other things. approach them, you will be surprised at the number of people who will say yes if you invite them to have a conversation about something that you are passionate about. You'll be surprised at the number of people who will say yes when you approach them to be a mentor, if not now, then at some later point in your life. So take advantage of those resources. This is something that I learned from the undergraduate women at Bryn Mawr, is that along with your sometimes wicked smartness, I mean wicked in the best kind of way, you also are people that I trusted and that I respect tremendously. So I know that you will find a way to make your presence today on this campus matter, not just for yourselves, but for those who are opted to come after you. I'm wishing you a tremendous event. I think there are good things that have been planned for you. And maybe I will see you the next time. Bye-bye.